Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Don't forget to comment below after hearing this. She threw her head back when he said it. Some dumb joke about wine. I couldn't hear the words from where I stood, but her laugh? That was clear. Sharp, high, and free in a way I hadn't heard in years. She used to laugh like that at home, barefoot in the kitchen, holding a spoon and pretending it was a microphone. Now she was in heels, wearing the red dress she swore was too fancy to wear anywhere, and sitting across from someone who wasn't me. Same laugh. Different man. I was behind them. 3 tables over. Close enough to watch, far enough to vanish. I didn't plan to see this. I didn't even know she'd be here tonight. I came for closure. I came to return something she'd clearly stopped wearing. The ring felt heavier in my pocket than it ever did on her finger. She stirred her glass slowly while he leaned in, elbows on the table like he already owned her. Maybe he did. Maybe I gave her away piece by being too soft, too available, too invisible. The waiter passed me a check I hadn't asked for. That was my cue. I stood up. My hands were damp. I walked right past their table. She didn't see me, not at first. But the second I dropped the small black box between them, everything stopped. He blinked. She froze. Inside was her wedding ring, polished, shining, and no longer hers. Next to it was a printed photo I'd slid inside from this morning. Her. Him. Her hand on his thigh. She whispered my name, barely audible. I didn't stop. No scene. No shouting. Just 5 words before I left. You'll both need napkins. Because neither of them knew what else I left behind, yet. I didn't look back when I stepped out of that restaurant. The air outside felt thicker than it should have, like it knew something had just collapsed. I thought I'd feel relief, or maybe just emptiness, but what I got instead was panic, sharp, sudden, crawling up my spine. Not because I regretted what I did, but because I realized that was only the beginning. She didn't come home that night. I didn't expect her to. I sat on the living room floor, back against the cold wall, watching the tiny blinking light on the Wi-Fi router like it could distract me. Her shoes were still lined up by the door. Her toothbrush still leaned against mine in the bathroom. And the framed photo of us from Niagara Falls, still tilted on the hallway shelf, just slightly off-center the way she always left it. Everything was untouched, but nothing felt real. At 3:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A minute later, a message came through. We need to talk. I knew it was her. I didn't reply. By morning, 5 more texts followed. All from new numbers. She was scrambling now, burning through fake accounts like they could undo the moment I walked away. One message stood out though. It said, "You're making a mistake." It wasn't what it looked like. That one made me laugh. Loud, bitter, stupid laughter that filled the kitchen and echoed off the fridge. Not what it looked like. She wore his jacket when she walked into the restaurant. His hand was still on the back of her chair when I left. I had photos, dates, phone records, receipts. I had more proof than I ever wanted. But then it got worse. That afternoon, someone knocked at my door. I assumed it was her. I was ready to say nothing, just stare until she left. But when I opened it, it wasn't Loretta. It was him, her lover, standing on my porch like he had every right to be there, holding a manila envelope and wearing that same smug expression I'd seen across the dinner table. He didn't say anything at first, just held it out like it was some kind of delivery. "What is this?" I asked, voice shaking. He shrugged. "She said you might want to see the truth." Then he turned and walked away. Inside the envelope was something I never expected. Photos of her, but not with him. Not from that night. From months ago. Different man. Different hotel. Different betrayal. Loretta hadn't just cheated once. She'd made a lifestyle out of it. I stared at the photos for over an hour without moving. They were all time-stamped, organized, like someone had been collecting them for months. Her in a hotel hallway. Her adjusting her hair in a mirror while a man zipped up his pants behind her. Her in sunglasses I never saw her wear, probably bought just for those trips. And in every image, she looked alive. Happy. Energized in a way I hadn't seen in years. Like the version of her I'd fallen in love with, had found someone else to smile for. But it wasn't just that she cheated. It was how easily she lived the double life. How confident she must have been that I'd never opened my eyes. She came home after those nights and kissed me like nothing happened, asked about my day, complained about traffic, crawled into bed beside me and pretended to sleep while I lay awake, worrying she was drifting from me emotionally. All the while, she was already gone. I didn't know what to do with the envelope. Burn it? Send it back? Post it online? That last one lingered longer than it should have in my mind. But I'm not that guy. I never was. I take hits. I fall apart quietly. Always have. That night, the door finally opened. She walked in without knocking, like it was still her house, like she still belonged there. She was wearing a hoodie, hair pulled back, no makeup. The same look she always wore when she wanted me to feel sorry for her. And stupidly, for a split second, I did. Emery, I didn't know he'd come to you, she said. No hello. No apology. Straight to damage control. I didn't speak. I just handed her the envelope. She looked inside. Her face dropped, but not out of guilt. She was angry. She actually had the nerve to be angry. Why would he give this to you, she hissed. That was before him. It doesn't even matter anymore. I think that's when it hit me fully. She wasn't ashamed. She was annoyed. This wasn't remorse. It was inconvenience. Like I'd opened a drawer she didn't want touched. I expected tears, explanations, some flicker of regret. But all I got was cold rationalization. I was unhappy, Emery, she said. You were too soft. Too clingy. I needed to feel wanted again. Wanted. That word echoed like thunder in my skull. I asked one question. How many? She blinked. Swallowed. Then whispered, I don't remember. That was the moment I realized she never planned to stop. I didn't kick her out that night. I wish I had. Instead, I stood there, frozen, swallowing the bile in my throat while she walked past me like this was just another argument. She poured herself a glass of water, like we were going to talk this out. Like she could patch over years of betrayal with a calm conversation and some twisted logic about how I changed. I slept on the floor of my office that night. Or maybe I didn't sleep at all. I'm not sure. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about that word again. Wanted. That's what she said she was missing. And somehow, I was supposed to take the blame for not being enough. I made her breakfast. I rubbed her feet when she got home. I left work meetings early to pick up dry cleaning because she forgot. I remembered every anniversary, every inside joke, every favorite snack. And I wasn't enough. The next day, I did something pathetic. I know it was pathetic, but I had to. I went into her purse while she was in the shower. Not to snoop. At least that's what I told myself. I wanted to prove she was wrong. That maybe it wasn't as many men as I feared. That maybe she exaggerated. That she could remember. What I found made my knees buckle. There was a small, folded notebook in the side pocket. The kind of thing you'd keep shopping lists in. But this wasn't groceries. It was names. First names only. Cities. Hotel room numbers. Dates. A full index of infidelity. Sloppy, rushed notes. Crossed out names. Arrows pointing to others. Some had check marks next to them. Others had tiny hearts. There were over 20 entries before I stopped counting. I dropped it like it burned me. When she came out of the shower, she saw it lying open on the table. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. You had no right. No right, I said, finally raising my voice. You were collecting them like baseball cards. She stepped toward me. You don't understand what our marriage became. No, I said, trembling. You don't understand what I became. And I didn't mean bitter or broken. I meant invisible. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just walked into the bedroom, closed the door, and left me in the kitchen, shaking like a leaf, holding a notebook full of strangers who had taken pieces of my wife. And I wasn't even sure she'd miss any of them. For the next 2 days, we didn't speak. Not a word. She stayed in the bedroom. I stayed on the couch. The house felt like a museum, quiet, sterile, haunted by things that used to matter. Every time I walked past the door to our room, I expected to hear her crying, apologizing, packing. But nothing. She didn't even leave. She just stayed in there like a queen in a locked tower, pretending she didn't destroy everything around her. I couldn't take it anymore. I left. Not forever, though I wish I had. I went to stay with my brother, Milo, who lives across town. He's one of those guys who doesn't ask too many questions, but the second I stepped through his door with a trash bag of clothes and eyes red from sleepless nights, he handed me a beer and said, "So, what did she do?" I didn't even have the words. We sat in silence for a while before I finally opened my mouth and said, "She has a notebook." He looked at me like I was crazy. With names, I added. Dates. Rooms. Like she was keeping score. His face darkened. "And you're still calling her your wife?" I didn't answer. Because that's the part that shamed me the most. Not her betrayal, not even the scope of it. It was me, still clinging to the word wife like it meant something. like it could still mean something. The next morning, Milo convinced me to go back, not to make up, but to get what I needed. Clothes, my passport, the hard drive with all my work files. I agreed, mostly because I didn't want to leave her there alone with access to everything I owned. When I walked in, the first thing I noticed was the smell, her perfume. Strong, deliberate. She wanted me to know she had dressed up. She was wearing that deep green dress I bought her 2 Christmases ago. Hair curled, eyes done, like she was hosting a dinner party. Except I wasn't the guest. There were 2 glasses of wine on the counter. One half full, one untouched. "You're early," she said, voice flat. Early for what? She didn't answer, but I didn't need her to. The sound of movement from the back hallway answered for her. Someone had been in the house. Maybe still was. That's when it hit me. She hadn't stopped. She'd just become bolder. And somehow, in her mind, I was no longer her partner. I was her cover story. I didn't speak. I just stood there, keys still in my hand, trying to process the fact that someone else was likely just feet away from me. In the house I paid for, in the home I painted, wired, repaired, sweated over. The same house where I once built a reading nook for her birthday. She said she wanted a quiet place to think. Apparently, now she just used it to hide things. She watched me, but didn't flinch, didn't apologize, didn't even blink. The silence between us felt louder than anything we could have said. She picked up her glass, sipped it like this was just another evening, like I was interrupting something mildly inconvenient. "Is he still here?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. She paused, then gave a half-smile. "Not anymore." That answer hit harder than if she'd said yes. The idea that he had already come and gone, like some ghost who slipped through our life without leaving footprints, made me feel like I'd missed the moment of truth. Again, I walked down the hallway without asking permission. I don't know what I expected to find. Maybe a shoe left behind. Maybe the guy himself scrambling out the window. But there was nothing. Just a faint smell of cologne that didn't belong to me. That was somehow worse. Back in the kitchen, she was wiping the counter with a dish towel, calm as a surgeon after a routine operation. "You should have stayed gone," she said. "This would have been easier." Easier for who? I wanted to yell. I wanted to smash something. But I didn't. I just leaned against the doorframe, defeated. "Do you even feel anything?" I asked. She didn't look at me. "I feel relief." That word broke me. Not regret. Not guilt. Relief. I nodded slowly. "So that's it. After everything, I'm just the guy who made your life too comfortable?" She turned to face me. "You were predictable, Emery. Safe. Boring. I was dying in this house, and you thought candles and pancakes would fix it." She said it like I'd built a prison out of kindness. Like being gentle was a crime. I opened the drawer next to me and pulled out the envelope of divorce papers I'd had drafted 2 days ago. I didn't even plan to bring them tonight, but something told me I'd need them. Her eyes locked on the documents. "Sign them," I said, "and then you're free. You won't have to lie anymore." She hesitated, then reached for a pen. And as she scribbled her name across the first page, I realized something chilling. She was smiling. There's something wrong about watching someone smile as they sign the end of your marriage. I don't mean wrong in a moral sense. I mean it's unnatural. Like watching a bird fly backward or hearing a clock tick in reverse. That's what it felt like when Loretta handed the papers back to me with a grin that wasn't relief or sadness. It was satisfaction. Like she'd finally crossed some invisible finish line and left me behind choking on her dust. I held the papers like they were contaminated. My name, her name, all the legal jargon that tried to make this mess sound clean and professional. It didn't feel real. I kept waiting for her to say something, to break down, to reveal this was all just a sick test. But no. She poured herself another glass of wine and leaned back against the counter like we were 2 co-workers finalizing a business deal. Then came the worst part. She reached into a drawer I rarely used and pulled out an envelope. Thick, sealed, already prepared. "I had these ready, just in case," she said. I took it slowly, heart pounding. Inside were photos. Not of her this time, but of me. Me leaving my office. Me at the gas station. Me sitting alone at a coffee shop. Zoomed in, shaky, but unmistakably me. Dozens of them. "What is this?" I asked, confused, terrified. "Insurance," she said calmly. "You think I didn't know you were following me? Taking pictures? Snooping through my things? I'm not stupid, Emery. And I wasn't about to let you turn into the victim publicly without covering my own back." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I finally understood the full depth of her manipulation. She hadn't just planned her affairs. She'd planned her escape, her defense, her narrative. I don't want to fight you, I said, voice cracking. I just want to be done. Good, she said. Then let's keep it that way. That night, I didn't go back to Milo's. I drove around until 2 a.m., then parked in an empty lot near an old park we used to visit years ago. I sat there with the engine off, just staring at the moon through the windshield. I felt like a ghost in my own life. And then my phone lit up. A message from a number I didn't recognize. She wasn't who you thought she was. You need to know the rest. I blinked. Read it again. A second message followed. Check your mailbox. I left something for you before she could destroy it. And just like that, the story wasn't over. It had just turned into something darker. I didn't sleep that night. The message kept playing in my head like a warning and a promise all at once. By sunrise, I was standing at the mailbox, heart pounding like I was defusing a bomb. Inside, tucked between a flyer for gutter cleaning and a bank statement, was a small padded envelope. No return address. I opened it right there on the curb, hands shaking. Inside were several photos, but this time, not of me, and not just of Loretta either. It was her and the man she said was just a friend, meeting in strange places, exchanging envelopes, holding hands in parking lots. There were also screenshots of texts, explicit, cruel, and mocking. In one, she even laughed about me bringing her breakfast while she was still sore from last night. That one nearly made me drop the envelope. Attached was a note. I was one of them. I didn't know she was married. When I found out, I walked away. But you deserve to know it was never just you. It was never your fault. That last line undid something in me. I had been blaming myself for months, for being boring, for being soft, for not catching on sooner. But maybe I wasn't weak. Maybe I just loved someone who treated my kindness like a flaw. I left town a few weeks later. Not to run, but to restart. I took a job offer I'd once turned down out of loyalty to her. I got a small apartment near the coast. Started hiking. Reading again. I even adopted a dog, a clumsy little thing named Grover who snores louder than most people talk. And the best part? I'm not angry anymore. She tried to ruin me, but all she really did was remove herself. And what's left is quieter, simpler, honest. I can live with that. Thank you for watching this story here on Reddit Confessions. If you made it to the end, I'd love to know, what was the most shocking moment in this story for you? Was it the envelope of names, the photos, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every one. And remember, sometimes losing someone is the best way to find yourself.